Hey everybody, Andy here with Anthony before this episode to just say thank you to everybody who supported our Patreon. The episode that came out last week was recorded and all edited before the Patreon was announced, so we didn't mention it last week because, time travel. But this is the first episode that we recorded since the Patreon, and the support we've received has been incredible. I am so grateful to everybody that has given a little money to help me get some time in my weekends back and to help this show keep happening and keep us energized and excited about making it.
Yeah, I mean, we were not sure what to expect.
Truly, I had no idea.
Really appreciate all the positive interactions we have with a lot of the people that listen and positive feedback, but there's a lot of stuff that just we haven't tried to quantify, so we just really didn't have a clear idea, and this is our first time doing a Patreon like that, but we really, really appreciate how much people have just been willing to support the show, and we're really excited to take all that, pour it back into the show, into getting to pay an editor, but then also just do much more with Lucky Paper, and that's just really, really validating to be part of this community.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to say. One is that I didn't know what the Discord was going to look like, because we talked about the fact that we don't really want to talk about Cube in the Discord because there's already a dedicated Cube Discord we're both very active in, so why silo those conversations and have them go on to multiple places? And so far, no one's really discussed Cube in that Discord, except as to say, here's the thing that resonated about the show with me or whatever. But the Discord has become great in other ways. We've got a food channel. We've got a channel about queer culture. We've got channels about the bonus feed, Magic Doesn't Exist, where you and I talk about whatever subject we want, as long as it has nothing to do with magic.
There's been a lot of watch chat in there, which I can't quite follow, but I'm trying.
Yeah, so maybe it's dumb to be surprised by this, but obviously I felt great about that little space where we can have people that are maybe, similarly burned out on the sort of pace and tempo of new Magic as we are, but still, love all the things it represents and have that be a space to talk about things. So I wanted to say that's kind of what the Discord is shaping up to be, and I'm excited about that. But the bigger message is that I mentioned when we announced the Patreon that if we did get more than our goal, that we'd be looking to basically put that money back into the community, and that's what we're going to do. So I have to talk to my tax prep person and figure out what my tax obligations are going to be because of this income. But once I figure that out, the goal here is basically to put all the money we get that exceeds the amount we need to edit every month, which is around $900 $1,000, to just put it back in the community in some way. The two ways we have planned are to have a fund to help people that want to contribute articles to Lucky Paper to help pay for Parker's time to edit and give feedback on those articles and help pay contributors, so we can build up a deeper catalog of articles about cube theory. I mean, the podcasts are great. This is the thing I love making. It's much easier for me to make podcasts than it is for me to write articles. Writing is so much harder for me, but there's a lot of great writers out there, and writing is so much more accessible in a lot of ways than podcasts are, because you can search them with a search engine. You can
search in the article. Read them at your own pace.
You can find them on a search engine much more easily, which is not true of a lot of podcast things. So, read it at your own pace. You can obviously refer back to it much more easily than referring back to parts of a podcast conversation. So, we'd love to invest more in that. That's part of our plan. The other thing is sponsoring people to attend local Cube events, which I'm going to make a commitment now that by the time this comes out, I will have at least an interest form available for people to fill out if you are interested in maybe getting sponsored by Lucky Paper to attend whatever local Cube event interests you. We said before, and I'll say again, that these small grassroots Cube events that tend to be, anywhere from 64 to a couple hundred people are the most fun we've ever had playing Magic at events, and I would encourage anybody that's interested in Cube to go out there and attend them. So this is us trying to basically help those events by just getting more people obviously buying tickets and coming through, and also help the community more broadly by making sure that some of the best representatives of our format are at these events, even if money would otherwise be a barrier for them. So if we can pull that off, I'm going to be so immensely gratified and proud if we can actually get to a point where we're paying to get some people to these events, because that would be so awesome. So that'll be in the show notes. Check that out. And yeah, thanks everybody. It's been incredible, and I'm just so grateful. I truly don't know what to say in terms of saying thank you. It means so much that people care about this show enough to help make it continue to happen, even though I do not have it in me emotionally to edit this show anymore.
Yeah, thank you all for having Andy recover from his burnout, I hope.
Yeah. Thank you for not forcing us to make the hard decision of, do we just stop making the show, because it's so hard for me to edit it. Anyway, sorry for the long intro. Enjoy this week's episode where we have Joe on to talk about Joe stuff. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Lucky Paper Radio. My name is Andy, and I'm here as always with my co-host, Anthony, just drafting one little itty baby single draft at one time Maddox.
Yeah, you got me. I just usually only draft one draft at a time.
Yeah, I double queued last night on my birthday in paper, running between tables to complete 2 drafts. And I got to say, both decks made it to the finals.
Incredible.
I
Happy
know.
birthday, by the way.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, my first time ever double queuing in paper. I mean, probably ever. When would I have double queued digitally? I don't think it's ever happened.
No, when have you played digital Magic at all?
I mean, for like 12 months there in
Okay.
2020,
Well,
basically.
Why would you do that? That's crazy. That's unhinged behavior. I know it was your birthday and you just wanted to get more draft in, but what's going on here?
Well, we had somebody who was coming into town for our draft night who was going to be a little late. Their plane got delayed, and so I wanted them to have a deck when they arrived. And I took a page out of their book because this person is with us on this episode of Lucky Paper Radio, introducing Joe, the benevolent chaos muppet of the MTG Cube community. Anderson. Welcome, Joe.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I have double queued in paper
Constantly.
5 or
every
6
night.
times. 5 or 6 times. There was one time at CubeCon where both Dan, aka Lupe's cube, and DSB's cube were both launching for the last time simultaneously, and there was 15 of us there. And so I checked with the other 14 people, and they said, yeah, it's fine. And so I double queued both of those. Again, both decks made it to the finals. I was playing so quickly that I actually had to wait for the finals because I had finished 4 games before anybody else had gone 2-0.
Well, so you then played all the games, too. I just drafted 2 decks, and then I handed one to you because you arrived in time for round 1, basically.
Yeah.
I could not have played that much Magic, for sure. No way I could have played 6 rounds of Magic last night.
6 rounds of Magic is a good start, yeah.
I will say, it's not a good sign for me, but I was often, while double queuing, still waiting for packs from both tables. I was just standing around like, I got nothing to do, even though I'm double queuing.
Yeah.
Which is definitely evidence that I'm just drafting too fast and too sloppy. And I'm sure at some point, some evaluation from deck A impacted deck B, like, deck A,
Got
for
the
example.
wires crossed. How similar were the decks at the end of the day?
They were not that different. It was
That's the trick.
They were in very different
That's the
cubes,
trick.
right?
Yeah.
One was the
pretty
Your
different
Sacred
cubes, but there
Geometry
was
cube.
some overlapping cards specifically.
Interesting.
I was drafting a red-green aggro deck for Joe. Joe asked me to force red, and literally the first 3 packs I saw to pack 1 had 0 red cards, and I was like, this is going to be an interesting challenge. I actually kind of like did a double take and was like, this is not a cube with no red in it, right? Because I saw 0 of them in the first 3 packs. I ended up drafting a pretty hard red-green aggro deck. There's a ton of combat tricks in that cube, and like kind of a Voltron, almost like Infect style win, even though your threats don't have Infect.
I joked that it was actually a combo deck because it had both Scale Up and Teamer Battle Rage. And so Scale Up makes something into a 6/4. A bunch of the creatures had counters instead of power and toughness normally. And then you give it double strike and trample, and that is 12 plus damage, 15 damage, whatever, 14 damage with some counters. And that kills a lot of people very quickly.
We'll come back to Scale Up, because Scale Up definitely played.
It's a story, yes.
Yeah, it played last night and will be part of our topic this week. But yeah, I drafted a red-green aggro deck in this nutritious cube, a food-themed cube owned by a local member of our playgroup, and then red-white aggro in the Sacred Geometry cube, which had like a pretty strong artifact sub-theme, which was pretty exciting. I enjoyed the artifact sub-theme in my deck quite a bit. I was a little light on creatures specifically in Joe's red-green deck, and I'm sure at some point, even though I knew I was looking at a different pack, I'm sure like subconsciously I was like, more creatures is good, and I probably at some point took another creature from my red-white aggro deck, which was flush with creatures and could have used another interactive spell.
Yeah, I can
something
see
like
where that, like, keeping track of, like, subtle densities of things would be really difficult while you're trying to draft 2 decks at once. I mean, I struggled with it in drafting 1 deck at a time. I was in the same spot where I was just, like, also trying to draft a pretty aggressive deck and was just like, I have no 1-drops going into pack 3, and I really need them to make these cards work. And then they were all in the same pack, weirdly. There was one pack that had, like, Bomat Courier and Monastery Swift Spear and another 1-drop, and I'm like, crap, what do I do here? I take the fixing
when
land,
that happens.
obviously. Yeah, it's like, who shuffled this cube anyway? It was ridiculous.
I love that we have someone specific to blame now whenever it seems like the packs aren't shuffled well.
Blame the shuffler. Yeah, exactly.
People
on
the
our
shuffler.
know all about it.
I did shuffle the cube. That was the joke, obviously.
Well, the joke was that you more invented the means by which every cube is now shuffled.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great night. Had a great time, and definitely just made me think I should be more slow and deliberate with drafting whenever I can. Feeling the sort of extra rush of like doing 2 at a time, I was like, if I just thought a lot harder about a lot of these picks, maybe we would have had a better deck at the end.
I prefer the speed drafting.
You're just over there shaking your head like, no. This is we do not be deliberate.
Do not be deliberate.
The problem is everybody else drafting too slowly.
Exactly. Correct. The first week that one of my friends, who's now a regular and has built like 3 cubes and all of that, The first week he started drafting with us, he was a little slower. He knows a lot of the cards. He just was, taking his time. And I was telling him, because I was also cooking at the same time. That's one of my normal things, is I'm cooking the food.
So you're really usually triple queuing. You're drafting 2 decks at once, and you're also cooking dinner for a bunch of people.
Well, no, normally I'm cooking and drafting. And if I'm not doing that, then I'll try and draft too. But I was telling him to just start stacking up packs for me because I was running back and forth to the kitchen. I had to take the pasta out and all that. And
I specifically asked the people I was drafting with to be extra conscious to zone draft as I was moving between tables.
I was showing him
noticing different techniques here, different styles.
I was showing him how to stack them at 90-degree angles, right?
Let me teach you how to not zone draft.
Exactly. So he got it and he was doing that. And then the next week he started doing that. And one of my other friends who wasn't there the previous week, who's a judge, was like, no. We want a zone draft, and he explained what zone drafting was, and he was telling people to not stack packs. And my friend Josh, who I had literally taught how to stack packs the week before, looked at me and said, "Wait, isn't this what you were telling me to do last week?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was."
Poor guy, getting mixed messages.
Truly bad influence.
Kind of, yes.
The devil on the shoulder of every drafter.
Yeah, I think of myself as a good person. I try to be a good person, but I do end up getting into a decent amount of mischievous trouble. I do still have to apologize for the skirmish rhino incident.
Oh, that was...
where
Oh, yeah. I had totally forgotten about that. I did not forgive, but I did forget.
Yeah, for those that don't remember, we mentioned that in our review for, what was it, Modern Horizons 3, 4? Which number is it?
Modern Horizons 17. No, it was in the Dragon
Oh, it was just
or whatever.
That's right, it was just in Tarkir Dragonstorm. That's right. It sounds like such a Modern Horizons-y card, because it's, such a callback. But yes, we, in our set review, talked about how Parker was like, wow, this card is just the highest rating by far. It's such a total runaway. And I was like, oh, did you not see that? I assume at the time I blamed Trainmaster GT. It turns out it was Joe that submitted 10 or 12 surveys back-to-back with only testing one card. That card, Skirmish Rhino, 10 out of 10.
And look, I thought you guys would catch it. I thought Parker or whoever making the surveys would just look at it because the names were not subtle. It was like Rhino Lover 2000 for my All Rhinos cube. This is a 10 out of 10. Or Skirmish Rhino is the greatest card ever printed since Siege Rhino. I have 75 framed copies of Siege Rhino. Like they were not subtle.
And to be honest, I also thought Parker would catch it because I saw it as it was coming in. We have a little automated channel that just shows us survey responses as they're coming in. And so I was like, oh, Parker's going to notice that too. But I think it was actually kind of funny, so he didn't. And we got to, reveal it on the episode.
Trainmaster did send me the message after you sent him the little threatening message saying, hey, just to confirm, you submitted a bunch of surveys. And he's
Before I publish this podcast where I drag you extensively, can I just confirm you are, in fact, a guilty party?
And he didn't respond, I don't think, but he just sent that to me, and I immediately sent to you like, oh, I'm so sorry. It was my fault. I was, it was a slow day at work, and I thought it was very funny.
Slow day at work. Let's do vandalism.
Well, I had listened to the wonderful collab you guys had done with Train's podcast, where you were actually making all of the jokes about Skirmish Rhino winning everything and being so great. And one of my local friends who got me into Magic is a huge, huge Siege Rhino fan, to the point where he got me to add it as the only 3-color card in my vintage cube for a little while and beat me with it. So, having that, I was like, oh, yeah, this is a fun little meme card. It's a great story. And I love, telling stories and having stories about things.
Yeah, we're not mad at you about it. It was funny. But also, nobody do that ever again, like we said on the podcast.
Yes,
this joke
don't.
works exactly once, and the next time, you're banned. We'll ban you based on IP address.
And I apologize for setting a bad example for the youth.
I also just thought it was hilarious that it ended up in me basically threatening to, kick Trainmaster GT's train sets to pieces in the episode.
It was great.
And
was
then
laughing.
immediately after that, having to edit anything like, hey, so it turns out this rant I just went on is completely unfounded, and Trainmaster GT is actually an upstanding member of the community.
It's not the first time I've accidentally framed people or semi-framed people for things, so...
Okay, well, this is what the episode's about now.
Topic changed. We're talking about Joe's many crimes now.
When I was a youth, I remember walking in the backyard. I was maybe 8-10 years old, and my parents had a barbecue in the backyard that had a ton of grease on it and then had gotten a bunch of dust on it. And I was like, oh, I want to write something on the barbecue. And I realized that if I write my name or something, I'm going to get in trouble. So I wrote my brother's name, and I said Moses was here. And then he got in trouble. And I was like, that's kind of surprising.
a perfect crime. I've gotten away with it.
So anyways, yeah.
I just have to share a dumb little anecdote from my childhood, which is somewhat similar, which is in high school, I had a buddy whose parents like left town for the week to go on vacation or something. So of course we had a big giant party at his house. And he's like one of our more soft-spoken friends. And this like party was getting like a little out of control, or people everywhere. But he was, being, walking around making sure nothing was getting broken or whatever. And I was just standing in the kitchen with like, 40, 50 people in this guy's house. And I was a close friend of his. I knew his parents. I'd been to his house, before. And so I just saw like their like family calendar on the wall. And I just picked up a pen and wrote on the day, big giant party. I just wrote big giant party on the calendar on that day. And I just thought, this is very funny. And then my buddy did not see that on the calendar, but his parents got home and were like, Dan, did you have a big giant party on this day?
So like everything was totally cleaned up, immaculate.
Yeah, everything was cleaned up. There was no damage.
On the calendar,
like,
big giant party.
Gotten away with it completely, except on the calendar it said this. So his parents were like, did you have a big giant party? And Dan was like, yes. And I was like, Dan,
you should have lied.
Dan, why would you write it on the calendar genuinely? You could have definitely lied and gotten away with that. But I think it's so funny that ended up totally outing him on the big party. I just wrote it on the calendar.
That's pretty great.
Anyway, that's about as blunt as Moses was here. So, our actual topic for this week is story moments in Cube, which is something I think is near and dear to your heart, Joe, fair to say.
Very much so.
One of your animating interests in Magic and Cube is creating story moments.
Literally the reason I play Magic.
The one reason.
Yeah, is to talk about it and to have a good time and explain the stories and say, oh, wow, look at this and look how I lost and all that. I don't play Magic to get better at things. I don't play Magic because, like, I think it's cool or will make me lots of friends.
It's
or anything
definitely
like
not
that.
cool. I mean, for
no,
sure.
it's not. It's very much not. I've talked about that a few different times about, like, the bad reputation of Magic players. I was talking about it again last night with Anthony back at his house. That's not why I play Magic. Oh, I also have, before we move on or whatever, this is a little birthday gift for you because...
Okay. You're holding some what look like coasters.
Yeah, like coasters. I mean, I listened to your new little locked behind Patreon, super secret, cool, not Magic podcast. And you were talking a lot about the fine craft work that you like in watches and things like that. And I was trying to think of something small to bring you for your birthday because I'm coming out here on your birthday. I brought Anthony a bottle of wine from Sonoma County because that's where I live. It's wine country. You don't
Anthony's
really...
lush.
I don't get that.
Oh,
Sorry.
that just means like a person that really likes drinking alcohol.
Sure. Sure. I'm sorry.
We enjoyed the bottle of
I
wine.
appreciate the earnest. I don't get that.
But I know that you don't drink as much alcohol or anything like that. So I was trying to figure out something to build for you. I do work in woodworking, but my father is very good at it, and I am okay at it. And so I was building a... I was building a...
You're good. You don't have to apologize.
a garden bed with my husband on the 4th of July, and we were making it out of redwood, and we had some big, thick redwood left over, heartwood, and 9 years ago, when we were dating, I had cut out a redwood root from the ground while doing some irrigation work in my parents' yard. And I had wood burned that with like both of our initials and a little heart and the date and all of that. But, since my husband's transition and all of that, those aren't his initials anymore. And so I took a big chunk of the remaining redwood and sanded that, cut that, wood burned it with his new name and all of that, and had that as just a little extra thing to set up in our garden now. But I had a bunch of leftover wood also. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to make something for Andy with this. And I was originally going to just make a little coaster. But I decided that what would be more interesting than just a little coaster is 8 little pack toppers.
Oh, very nice.
So these are not all the same size. They have little wood-burned Roman numerals on them. You can shuffle them up kind of thing face down, hand them out to people, and then flip them up. So it's like a randomized seating order. You can put them on your packs. They're a little larger than a Magic card, width-wise, and a little shorter lengthwise. They're square. Magic cards are rectangles.
Thank you.
I'm just
Breaking news.
I'm describing for people that can't see these, right? Like,
For people that haven't seen a Magic card before, they are rectangles
or whatever. It's an audio medium. So, anyways, these should sit on the top of packs pretty easily. They are not finished. Redwood naturally ages and stuff, and works totally fine as fencing and outdoor tables and stuff like that where I live. So
just silvers over time.
Yeah, so they're sanded and nice, but I figure that's a nice little tiny gift that you can use.
These are gorgeous. Thank you, Joe. That is so thoughtful. You remain the nicest man in Cube.
No, Kate is nicer than me.
That might be true. Yeah,
I'm happy to see that.
Kate is really nice. That's true. No, this is so lovely. Thank you so much. That's very generous of you. Very beautiful gift.
And I figured, as opposed to like a cutting board or something where you would want to know how it's seasoned, and every time it would have a problem, you would probably mention it to me, and I would try to fix it. I was like, this is something.
Who am I in your mind?
Well, no, just in general, when I've built things for people in the past, that has happened. And so
you just seem like the kind of guy.
Who are you calling out here?
No, family members.
Who did you frame in this story?
You seem like the kind of guy that'd be a huge pill where, like, if something wasn't right about the cutting board, you would like message me at 3 a.m. and be like, "What's wrong with you?"
So, anyways, you like fine craftsmanship. This is fine craftsmanship.
These have a good hand feel. They have a good hand feel. I like them. They're beautiful.
And if you have 9 players, one of them gets to be the Andy.
Well,
yeah, I like the idea that I just get to be Andy. Take out any one of the Roman numerals, stick Andy in there.
Sure, and also that's like, so if you have just that as an individual pack topper for you, if there's 8 people doing something else or whatever, right?
I'm just doing my own little draft. One little pack topper.
If you have like a 4-pod and an 8-pod, and you're in, this is a common occurrence for me.
You have a 4 and an 8. You have a couple weird pod sizes.
Yeah. We have a couple of smaller cubes specifically designed for like 4 to 6 people because we often get like 12 people, or we get 11 people, or we get 13 people or something like that. So you have like a 7 and a 4 rather than trying to make it work with different numbers. So
beautiful. Thank you so much, Joe. That is a very thoughtful birthday gift.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, so I want to know about your relationship just more broadly to Magic and to Cube, and I think that's going to dovetail naturally into what a story moment is and what it means to us as Cube designers.
I've been on a few different little podcasts. I was on the Cube Reviews thing, and I talked to Ian Braverman. Really likes to cut his podcasts to exactly an hour or less. I talked with him for I think an hour 45 because I talked a bunch about my whole like history of getting into Magic and all of that. I have an entire podcast every week where I just jibber jabber, specifically because my husband said to me, I can only take maybe 15, 20 minutes of you talking about Magic a day. And then I really just, I need something else, Joe. I love you, but you got to talk to somebody else about this. And so I made a podcast where I just talk about it all the time.
You're like, what if I talk to hundreds of somebody else? And also they can't talk back, and also I can't hear them.
Yeah, not hundreds. My most viewed episode was the airport episode, which has about 120 people that have listened to it. And normally my episodes get about 15 to 20. It's great.
That episode is a great work of art, though. I would definitely recommend people go listen to that.
We're going to link all the stuff in the show notes. You can get a link to Joe's Week in Magic, and count me among the 15 to 20 that listens regularly.
No, exactly. Like, I was making it, and I was getting like 15 to 20 people that were listening, and I got literally 0 comments on any episode or people telling me anything.
Hey, that's a blessing.
Well, sure. And I was like, okay, who is listening to this? Like, who are the people that are listening to this? Because I know that some of it was like people from my local group that weren't there as often because, you know, they were having babies or had moved away or something like that. And then
I like the idea of being like, sorry, I can't go to Magic tonight. I'm having babies.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
I'll be back on next week, but this week I'm having babies.
I mean, that's probably true for some people, but I realized it was a lot of my online friends that, you know, like Aqua or Nadia or whoever that like I talk to on the internet a regular amount. They want to know about what's going on in my life. They care a lot about Magic. They care a lot about, you know, my LGBT coming out story and journey through all of the other things going on in my life, my stress about the world and politics and all this, but will also listen to me brag about my sick Cowards Can't Block Warriors legacy deck for 20 minutes first. And then I went to CubeCon and I saw you guys there, and you were talking about listening to my podcast in the car ride up to CubeCon with the little, you know, I have a kind of distinctive face and picture I take when I do my drafts. It started really honestly kind of as like an advertising thing of just trying to make sure that people knew where we were drafting, what I looked like, that we were having a good time, that I wasn't a random axe murderer because I draft at my house and I'm just like, hey, come to this address, bring your Magic cards. Don't worry about it.
Come to this address and bring your most valuable hobby.
Exactly. Come to this address, bring all the valuable things you own. I'll be there with some of my friends. Don't worry. So, you know, having a silly photo helps lure people into a sense of security. This works with the whole.
Where are we going here? Yeah, which to be clear, like you also have a Cube night that's been going for years and years, but rather than hosting in a public space which most people try and do, you do this at your own home, which is a different situation. I guess, yeah, it's a big thing for you to take that on, but also is more difficult for other people that are potentially going into an unfamiliar space.
And a big thing for your husband, frankly.
Yeah.
Yes. My husband is a lovely introvert, and so he limits me to one night a week of Magic while he's home. But when he goes off to work on Saturdays and stuff, sometimes I can run extra nights or Cube events. But he goes and plays D&D upstairs on the computer with his friends on Tuesday night, and man, it used to really be a massive production. I would get off work at like 4:30, run around, pick up 3 or 4 different people that did not drive back to my house, get them all set up, start cooking, have people show up around 6. We eat, we draft, we play all our games. Everybody's out of there by like 9:30.
Do you drive those 3 people back home then too?
Yes. So yes, I do. One of the other things is that because we have a growing community now, we have like, oh, will you drive somebody back home that's near you and all of that. And there are less people that I have to pick up every week. So where I live is in Santa Rosa, and where I work is in Roanoke Park. It's about 15 minutes by car. But I would go 15 minutes south of Roanoke Park to pick up somebody, then drive 30 minutes north up into northern Santa Rosa. In Roanoke Park, pick up another person, and then northern Santa Rosa, pick up a third person, and then drive back to my house in southern Santa Rosa. So it was like an hour of car ride before the drafting, before the setup, before everything else. And I had to do that to make this happen.
To get 8 people.
No, to get to like 4 people to start.
Sure.
Originally.
Yeah. I mean,
so, and then to get to update. But the guy that introduced me to Cube, he only would launch Cube drafts if he had exactly 8 people. So if you had 7 people, the draft was canceled. If you had 9 people, somebody had to sit out.
That's crazy. I mean, you were saying this, I think maybe it was on Cube Reviews, and it's like, it's crazy that people would do that, but also that was really like the norm a couple years ago. Like it took us all being like, okay, we can make a draft work with 5 people and it'll be fine.
And it's crazy how fine it is. Like, how much worse is it really to have 7 people or 6 people than 8? It's like, I don't know, 10% less perfect. I don't know. It's like, it's so subtly worse, the idea that you would just cancel it. Kind of crazy.
Yep.
I think it's like inherited from drafts on Magic Online are always 8 people, or maybe this was back before drafts were all asynchronous and whatever. You wouldn't play, you'd play out of pod. But it used to be that you would draft with 8 people and you'd play your in pod matches in every single draft of the Magic Online Vintage Cube. And yeah, I think that sort of subtly weaseled its way to people's brains, and they're like, well, yeah, well, you only draft with 8.
I think it's also a thing from Retail Limited. That's a thing that like our local LGS will like only launch drafts with 8 people, and they will wait till 8 people show up to launch the draft.
Sure, because they're trying to run a business, and like 3 rounds is what you're paying for, so they can't really have that flexibility.
Yeah, so it sucked. But back when I was first getting into playing Cube and stuff, I was listening to the Cube podcasts that existed then, a little bit of the Third Power, but they made their last episode before I started playing Cube. So I just listened to old stuff. I listened to a little bit of the 540. I listened to a bunch of Sully Singleton. And you guys started posting on Reddit with a little set reviews of like, hey, rank your cards for Wilds of Eldraine. Original Eldraine, I think, was the first one.
That was the very first one, yeah.
And I remember submitting how high I was ranking Murderous Rider and all of the other random cards from that set, Once Upon a Time and Oko. The first like 2 or 3 times I actually saw Oko, I was like, this card's not that bad. And then I started playing against it more, and I was like, no, this card is really bad when you're playing a deck with creatures or trying to kill your opponent or anything, right?
That was what everybody experienced with Oko. Everyone was kind of like, this is weird. I also remember the card was spoiled before we knew what a food was.
Yeah.
So that was the distraction. Everybody was like, the thing about this card is, what's a food?
Yeah, is a food good or bad? And then it was like, oh, a food gains life. And everyone was like, okay, this card's not that good anymore, it turns out.
And I also, I played Doom Foretold in that standard for a little while. And so Doom Foretold was like a 4-mana enchantment. Your opponent has to sacrifice a non-token permanent on their turn.
I read that card so many times, and I never really figured it out.
Doom Foretold, famously a card, I still don't understand what it does.
So basically, it's like a smokestack. It's like a fixed smokestack kind of effect where you can't sack tokens. So you would like, there was an entire standard deck built around it that I played where like you would play like a 2-mana or like Golden Egg or something like that, and then you'd play some enchantment that like draws you cards and you want it to be sacrificed. Then you play Doom Foretold, and then you'd pass to the Oko player who had just played their 3-mana Oko, and they would sacrifice their Oko. And they would have gotten a food out of it. And your deck did not play non-token creatures. And you're just like, oh yeah, this is great and easy and fine. And then you start trying to play like a red deck against Oko, and you go, oh, wait a second, this is not fine. Anyway, so I actually went to the first CubeCon. I am known as a Cube sicko and all of that, but I went to the first CubeCon partially because of starting to listen to this podcast. Because Anthony here was talking about how you should go to that event even if you just like, even if you're not as into Cube, if you're just like into drafting, even if you don't have a Cube in the event or whatever, because there's going to be so much drafting, there's going to be such an opportunity to experience all of these different game states and things people have created experience these stories. And so I was like very interested by that, and I joined the little Discord server. I had made my first Discord account during 2020 because I wanted to host do online versions with just my local people, and I had very little connection outside of Reddit to the larger Cube community or anything like that. And then through KubeCon and Cube Cobra and whatever else, I ended up growing larger connections throughout the community. And now I've traveled, I don't know, I've traveled to like multiple, like 3 or 4 different states to play Cube stuff now. I have had people from out of state stay at my house to play Cube many times. And, I'm out here in Baltimore partially because of what you said randomly on the podcast like 4 years ago. So
wow. What a story.
Yeah,
you're so powerful.
I would say
Anthony.
not randomly. That was a pretty specific thing. That was,
it was
kind
an
of meant to
injunction.
happen.
It was an injunction, yes.
How many cubes did you end up playing that weekend? Like, did
Cube,
that
the
promise
first
get
CubeCon?
fulfilled?
Oh, yes. I played more cubes at the first CubeCon than literally anybody else in the room. I was texting my brother, I remember, because my brother knows what Magic is, and he'll play it with me if I ask him and beg him. And that's how I used to be able to fill up a pod of 6 or 8 or whatever. I'd be like, Moses, please play with us. He was the most...
He was like,
He'd
I
be like,
still
I
don't
remember the
forgive
grill
you for the
incident.
grill.
Oh, he was the biggest troll. He was by far a bigger troll. He would take a pack and he
Well,
would turn...
guess where he learned that?
Sure. When he would be passed a pack, he would pick a card, and then he would turn every other card upside down. And then he would hand the pack to the next person. I remember he was playing one time with his lands in a semicircle on the left.
Every other as in alternating, every other as in not the one he picked.
Got it.
Because
Thank
otherwise
you.
you just
Yeah,
flip the whole pack.
exactly,
Yeah.
He would play with his lands in a semicircle on the left, his non-land permanents in a semicircle on the right, and his deck and graveyard and library in the middle.
No, you're not allowed to do that.
He
Actually are not allowed now, yeah.
Yeah, I know. He kept asking, like, am I allowed to do this?
And you say, you're banned from the DCI. Sorry.
Well, that's what he wanted. That was the problem. He would draft. He didn't want to play Magic with us, right? Like that was the thing.
I'm trying to get banned over here.
He would hate draft all the storm cards because he hated the like concept of storm decks killing him and all of that. And I remember like he would cast tendrils for 2 a lot, like Dark Ritual tendrils. You lose 4, I gain 4. Pass. And we were like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I didn't want Isaiah to do this to me. Anyways, I was texting my brother about being at CubeCon and all of this, and I was like, yeah, this is great. There's like, it's going to be all these other people that are super, super, super into Magic that are willing to play Magic till 1 a.m. with me. And I mean, I did get a lot of games in the 3 times I've been to CubeCon doing all of that. But also at a certain point, I think it was like midnight or something, and I was like, oh, is anybody else looking to launch a draft? And it was like day 2, and somebody said, Joe, no, we've been drafting for 48 hours. We're looking to sleep. You're a Cube sicko. And I was like, what does it mean when you go to an event that's, huge across the country with 500 other people, and they're like, wow, you draft a lot of Magic, man. And
Means you have a problem.
yeah, I do have a problem.
Sorry, this has changed from a podcast to an intervention. I mean, just to quantify it a little bit, you drafted like 14 times or something the first year, and then I think you broke your record every subsequent year.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact numbers because I'm a little tired again from drafting so much Magic. But I believe at the last CubeCon, I hit like 25 drafts.
It's
or something.
crazy. That's crazy behavior.
No, talking about crazy behavior. I've been coming out here for a little Cube thing and doing some drafts and stuff. The MTGO Cube also went up, and I do play on the computer. I know it's bad for me, but
I'm going on the computer. I know it's bad for me, but I'm doing it anyway.
I say I play video games, but it's really a video game, and it's either Sid Meier's Civilization or it's Magic the Gathering. But I did not really feel like celebrating the 4th of July this year because, the country is terrible and getting worse, and I understand that. So I had the 4th of July off. I was packing for my trip. I had my trip all ready, and I built my little garden bed with my husband. And other than that, I have basically just played Magic the Gathering online since like Thursday night. I was one of the top 4 people on the little leaderboards. I was just jamming games and having a great time, taking a break to go to church and have my in-laws over and all of that, or my nephew and nephew over and all of that. But then Monday night, I was trying to go to bed at 9 because I had a flight at 3 a.m. I had to take a bus to the airport and all of that. And at about midnight, I had been tossing and turning for 3 hours, could not fall asleep. So then I just got up and let my husband sleep and went downstairs and I played Magic the Gathering online from midnight to 3 a.m. And just did not sleep. And then I took the flight over here and then I landed and immediately started drafting with that deck.
Started playing. I had drafted for you.
Playing, yes. So again, I've slept about 6 hours since Sunday, and this is Wednesday.
Not enough.
Congratulations on your number 4 ranking on MTGO in the Cube. That was a little nugget buried in there, but that's really impressive.
Did you not sleep last night?
Yeah, that was the 6 hours.
Oh, boy. Unhinged behavior.
And I was talking to my husband about, again, the Magic Online Cube, it's just a numbers game, right? Even if you have a 70% win rate, it counts how many times you've won. So you have to just keep playing. And I read an interview a couple years ago with one of the people that had set an all-time record or won the trophy season or whatever. And they were like, oh, hey, what's going on in your life and all that? And he's like, well, I'm unemployed and my girlfriend broke up with me. I graduated college, could not find a job. She moved away. We broke up. I have applications out, but I've been playing a lot of video games.
What's going on in your life? I'm keeping the demon dogs at bay by playing video game.
And I was like, okay, got it.
I'm
That's
sad,
how you get
so
to be
I'm
number
going
one.
on the computer.
Well, it's just like that. That's how you get to be number one. I can't be number one. I could maybe get to number 4 for a brief moment because I sacrificed 4th of July holiday.
And you are asleep. But then you have a family that loves you that you had to spend some time with. And, what are you going to do with that?
Yeah, I mean, I was telling my husband all this, and he's like, well, do you want me to leave you? That would help, right?
Oh, God.
Do you want me to leave you so you can make it to number 1?
I respect his boundary setting. You get one night a week, and you get 15 minutes of talking about Magic, and that's it.
Good, clean boundaries.
I love him so much. We've been married or dating or whatever for almost a decade at this point, dating and then married. Anyways, I play Magic because I like the stories. I play a lot of different cubes. I play with a lot of different people in a lot of different places. But the thing that I love is that high highs and low lows, that variance that last night you were talking about scale up. We were mentioning that and we're going to come back to that. There was at least 2 different games where my opponent had been doing a very good job managing my board, killing all of my creatures, doing stuff. And then they tapped out and they passed to me and I drew off the top scale up, which made my creature into a 6/4. And then I attacked with it and I gave it double strike and trample with Temur Battle Rage and they just died. And that happened one game where I was actually planning to do that. And then in a later game in the finals, Andy came over to watch. And again, operating on no sleep, I instead of attacking with my creatures and ninjutsuing in this guy that was able to blow up an artifact.
Kappa-Tech Wrecker.
Yeah, Kappa-Tech Wrecker and bounce back my Reclamation Sage and blow up another artifact. I just cast the Kappa-Tech Wrecker and passed. Andy's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. It's he seemed like he had pretty good blocks.
I try to get pretty good in our local playgroup about not being a weird sideline commenter on games because I think it's uncouth and kind of rude. But also, I drafted that deck, and so I was like, this is my child.
Yeah.
And I walked over and I was like, I saw you draw it off the top of the deck. I was like, that's a great top deck because if you attack all out here, he's got a good block on your best creature, which is your lesser static infantry, but he's not going to block Reclamation Sage, and he has got 3 artifacts in play, so you get to ninjutsu the Kappa-Tech Wrecker, blow something up, pick up the Reclamation Sage, play that again, blow another artifact up. I was so excited.
That would be a cool story that didn't happen.
But I was able to win that game because I then top decked scale up and made all my creatures 6/4s and just killed my opponent anyway.
So maybe actually, hold on, you would have had 1 fewer creature if you had actually ninjutsu the Kappa-Tech Wrecker, but he would have 1 fewer creature too because he would have blown something up. It's hard to say.
Yeah. So the thing that I love is this roller coaster of emotions of what did you do? How'd you do that? Well, that's so bad. And again, some people like to play Magic because it's a skill expression for them. It's something they can get better at. Oh, look, I'm number 4 on the MTGO Cube stuff. But that's something for me, but that's not everything, right? I don't do other things where I'm trying to express my skill. I don't do running and try and beat my time or working out or playing chess or stuff like that. I like the flavor and the variance and the craziness. One of the little stories about I've told many times with my local group is I have a very good friend named Isaiah who's been part of my cube group since the very, very beginning. He plays a lot of Storm decks. He's the guy my brother would hate draft from. He's drafted more cube with me than probably any other person. And we were drafting my cube. I have a couple of little conspiracies in my cube. So we shuffled up our decks, and I was like, hey, Isaiah, this is round 2. I've been running around. I think I have not the right number of cards in my deck from an Oblivion Ring or something. Can you just count my deck for me real quick? And I went over to solve some other problem for somebody else.
Went to go cook a pot of pasta?
No, I think like the towel in the bathroom needed to be replaced, or somebody was asking like, where do you keep the extra toilet paper or something like that, right? So I was doing
Somebody had pooped a lot.
that. And I
Must have been good pasta.
I came back and Isaiah's like, you only have 35 cards here, Joe. And I was like, oh yeah, haha. And I flipped over the conspiracy that shows that I can have 5 fewer cards. And he's like, oh, sure, thanks. And then I was like, okay.
So you're saying you did not do this intentionally to troll him?
Oh, I did do this intentionally to troll him.
Okay, so you knew your deck had the right number of cards in it. You weren't worried about some Oblivion Ring. Okay.
No, I was lying to him. So again, not the nicest guy in Cube. Kate is nicer than me. So I then asked Isaiah, how do you want to determine who goes first? So he's like, all right, high roll, and he rolled.
Let's do the classic who has more cards in their deck.
He rolled. He beat me. And then I flipped over power play, which is conspiracy that says I always go first. And I was like, all right, cool, I'm going to go first. I attacked him. I went turn 1, mountain, goblin guide, attack him. He hits a land off the top. He plays a land. He plays consider, puts a land into the graveyard, draws. I go back to my turn, attack him again with goblin guide. He hits another land off the top. He goes to his turn, plays a second land, plays a Black Lotus, plays some rituals, does a bunch of stuff, casts Mind's Desire for 6, and hits 5 lands and a card draw spell. I then hit, which draws another land. I attack him again the next turn with Goblin Guide. He flips another land, and that is the only time I have ever seen Isaiah concede, because he is normally a very chill, very calm person, but he was like, all right, I'm done. You've trolled me twice, and my deck has 15 lands, and I have seen 9 of them. And that's a fun little story.
Was it fun for Isaiah?
I mean, I think so. He still comes to Cube Night. I did tell him.
Joe's like, I play Magic to drive my friend who's really even-tempered and never gets mad. The one time he got mad is one of my favorite memories.
I mean, one of the things he did as a trolling thing one time was one of our other friends was like, oh yeah, this hand's okay, I'll keep. And Isaiah was like, yeah, mine's okay too. I think I have okay turn 1. And his turn 1 involved casting 2 Emeralds. With channel and all sorts of other shenanigans. But like having these like great top deck moments, or other times where like it's gone really poorly for me. Like I had one game against we had Caleb Gannon actually come up and draft my cube with me in Santa Rosa area, and one of my friends was super into Algomancy, Caleb Gannon's card game, and he's not as into Magic. He plays a medium amount of Magic with us. He probably cubes with us maybe like once a month, once every other month, but he's not super good at Magic, and he was playing against me, and I was on a ridiculous mono white deck. I played against all 11 other people in the cube draft, and I went like 7-3 or 7-4 or whatever.
You played 11 matches of Magic in one afternoon?
One evening, yes. I went and picked up Caleb from San Francisco, drove an hour and a half or hour north to where I am.
And then you also did other stuff?
Well, yeah. So I drove him an hour, and I had cooked before that, and then we ate and started cubing at like 6, and then I finished up around 11. And
How could you play 11 matches in 5 hours? That seems...
Mono white aggro.
It must have been crazy fast.
Yeah, so when I'm casting White Plume Adventurer on turn 1, it usually ends pretty quick. But against my friend Alex,
you have to read what the whole dungeon does. That would take me an hour.
So, well, that's the part of the story, is that in Undercity is super powerful. It's super strong. Oh my gosh, initiative is banned or one of the initiative cards is banned in Legacy. And I played a White Plume Adventurer against my friend Alex, and he was just on like a blue-white control deck that had a lot of ways to kill stuff, but not a lot of creatures. And I went through the entire Undercity 3 times, and he won that game. And it was the first time he beat me in a match. And he was so excited, and I was so excited. I was like, dude, this is crazy. This is crazy. And like, it was just great. And like, I love that. And I remember that was, 2 years ago.
This is great. I love story time.
Sorry.
But what I want to talk about...
So how we get to stories?
What I want to talk about more is what the distinction is for you between like a great story moment and just a game of Magic that just ends. And ultimately, I think it gets to like some of the deep underlying motivations for like why we play games.
Yes. So it's like a roller coaster, right? I'm so anecdote pilled. I just want to just do another anecdote about roller coasters or whatever. But it's like a roller
Anyway, what's
coaster.
that one on a roller coaster? All right, anecdote over.
It's
It goes up, it goes down, it goes around and
You know
loop
how
loop.
when you're on a roller coaster and you're with your friends and you're eating a hot dog and
So like when we think of roller coasters, right? Like there's like the anticipation, and then you're going up, and then you're going down, and it's crazy and scary, and you're like ah, and like there's a bunch of stuff. Whereas like
Famously.
a train, you're just going blah 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 all the time.
roller coasters are kind of just like insane trains. Huh?
Exactly. My first
Wow,
time.
Trainmaster GT somewhere is just screaming, crying.
My first time on a roller coaster was at Legoland because I loved Legos. I loved the medieval Legos, and the medieval Lego section at Legoland was a dragon roller coaster. And I remember being like 8 years old and very afraid of roller coasters. And my mother and brother and I went, and they only put 2 people per car. And so my brother was littler, and my mother sat with him, and I got to sit in front of them. And I was the very first person on the roller coaster, and I was so scared. And my mom said, "Don't worry, it's okay. People scream all the time on roller coasters. You can scream whenever you want." And so I immediately started screaming as we started the ascent. And I was just yelling my lungs out the whole way up. And by the time we started doing the like loop-de-loops and the downs, my voice was gone. I couldn't scream anymore. So
That's a beautiful story. Also, what a nice, supportive thing of your mother to say. Like,
Yeah.
you're allowed to scream right
And
now.
I was like, okay.
then she was wrong. You lost your voice, so you literally could not scream when you wanted to.
I have no voice and I must scream. But anyways, so like that working as a parallel with Magic, my least favorite part of Magic is really long, grindy, mid-rangey games where you're doing a lot of
Go
intensive.
through the dungeon 3 times.
No, that's not grindy. You're just like boom, 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 boom.
How's that not grindy?
The Bun Magic style where you're just sitting there and you're like, oh, well, which removal spell should I use on this creature, even though they're similar things? Like, is Cut Down or Fatal Push more valuable to use on this creature compared to what other creatures my opponent might have in their deck? And then 2 turns later, they draw a card that dies to one, but not the other. Oh, that was a misplay for me. That's why I lost the game. I will learn and be better about that in game 2. I hate that. I hate having to think that much and having to worry that much. I like the big highs and lows. And one of the things that I specifically look for in my cubes, and my cube group as a whole has moved towards also, is having these ridiculous cards, right? There's one cube in my group that's made of a mystery booster and like playtest cards and all that. And there's like 2 or 3 of them that are vintagey cubes. There's one that's an uncube. There's all of this stuff because what we are looking for is this like adrenaline rush, this like thrill. And you know, you can get that from doing dangerous stunts. You can get that from driving your car too fast. You can get that from a roller coaster. You can't get that most people can't, from like a game of chess or putting together a puzzle correctly. You don't get that like, oh my God, I might die. What am I doing? But when I play mono red with Sulfuric Vortex, I feel like, oh my God, I might die. What am I doing sometimes?
There's a couple things I want to tease out here. First,
Sure.
I want to share my favorite moment from my draft last night, which
Yeah.
was actually exactly the kind of moment that I think you're describing as like insufferable, stupid, annoying moment, which is I was playing against Patrick in an earlier game. I had seen Kess in his deck, which was very strong and would be a problem for me if it stuck around for a couple turns. On turn 3, he played a Merfolk Looter, and I knew I wanted to remove it because was like a Drake Haven deck and just had lots of ways to care about discarding cards. And so I had a Glass Casket and a Flame Slash in my hand. And I was like, okay, if I Flame Slash, I can also play this 2-drop, which is a much better play for the tempo of the game for like my, deployment of spells. But then I'm down 1 answer for Kess, and Glass Casket does not answer Kess. So instead, I basically kind of took the turn off and just Glass Casketed the Merfolk Looter, and sure enough, Kess landed exactly on time, and I had the Flame Slash, and that won me the game. And that is exactly the kind of story moment that I live for. And it's funny because it's like you were describing how you don't care about like getting better at things and tracking your improvement and all that kind of stuff. And like I think mostly I agree with that, except I do like trying to get better. Like for me, it's about the like drive to improve and less about like whether you actually quantitatively win or more. Like I care about those moments, whether I go 2-1 or 3-0 in the draft is much less important to me than whether or not I feel like I get to have those moments. I get so much more frustrated at myself if I feel like I made a dumb punt than I do if my record is bad,
Sure. No, I totally understand that. And I know a lot of people that do that, right? Like I think about our friend Greg, right? It's always like Denrova horror that's always like thinking about the complexities and like the skill level and designs cubes like Atomic and Companion that are designed for that kind of thing. I play Black Lotus in my cube. I already know that there is some inherent huge amount of swingy variance. I don't want to worry. You're talking about analytics. I track a bunch of my drafts now just to remember all of these great stories and remember what happened and when the things occurred. But I don't want to be better because I want other people to show up and play with me more and more. And I want new people coming in. I want people that have played for a while and are gone. And if I'm winning all of the time, I would feel much worse. So I've talked about this with Parker a little bit, right? You know, he wrote that whole article about every cube night has 7 losers or 16, 12 losers, 16 losers, a large number of losers. Everybody's a loser. But I like being able to ascribe your losses. I like being able to ascribe my losses, and I like other people being able to, if they want, ascribe their losses to things that aren't just skill level, right? It's like, oh, I was unlucky. Oh, I got mana screwed. Oh, my opponent drew a good top deck. That is a thing that, you know, we use as a coping mechanism.
Do you think you can't always do that in Magic? I feel like Magic is complicated enough that you can always launder responsibility for a loss, regardless of whatever kind of cube you're playing.
Sure, yes. And again, the things that I'm saying don't just apply to vintage cubes. They apply to a variety of things. I draft decks specifically so that I can get into situations where it is more likely that variance comes up. So, like, a lot of my red aggro decks as compared to like a white aggro deck, they're very similar. They put on a lot of pressure early. But the red decks, when it gets to that late game, when your opponent has board wiped you and stabilized and they're going to kill you in 2 or 3 turns and you have no cards in hand, there's still a chance. You could top deck that Fire Blast. You could draw that last bolt. If it's a white deck, you're like, oh, well, maybe I'll draw my Cathar Commando and hope that they don't leave back a blocker. But like, there's not that like, oh my gosh, I'll get there. I'll barely get there, maybe. I was talking with a friend about Mana Crypt, and he was like, oh yeah, you know, variance, high rolls is terrible. There's no cube game in which it was improved by having a Mana Crypt as part of the game. And I was talking about how I literally on MTGO this weekend had 2 different lines of play I could do. One was a safer play that made my opponent dead in like 2 or 3 turns, but lost if they drew like 2 removal spells and had another blocker or something. And the other one killed them on their turn if they lost the Mana Crypt flip. But if they won the Mana Crypt flip, they could attack me for lethal. And so I went for the line where it was a 50-50 shot of whether I won or lost. And I loved that. And then I won, and it was great. But like, if I lost, it would still be fun and great, right? It would be the wrong play. It was the wrong play, but it was what I liked to do.
Well, this is the other thing I want to tease out is I think what you're describing here is actually quite valuable and not discussed in cube design circles a lot. I hear so many people talking about wanting, you know, a lot of people to have skill expression in their cube and to like offer a lot of interesting decisions and like all that kind of stuff. And it sounds like what you're saying to me, to translate it lightly, would be you are looking to like maximize the opportunity for swingy moments, specifically while minimizing the sort of burden of decisions. Like,
correct. Great. Yes.
Like you're sort of trying to craft an environment where people are actually rewarded for not making interesting decisions, but instead kind of maybe drafting a little on rails or maybe drafting cards that are really swingy. Just
drafting on rails, but the rails are crazy and have loops in them.
Yeah, I disagree with the drafting on rails part, but I agree with most of the rest of what you're saying. This idea of like, I mean, I'll put it this way. I've gotten a few speeding tickets in my lifetime. I am a person...
There it is. That's how you're doing so much in every day.
I am a person who likes to live life at full speed and to the fullest. Other people like to stop and smell the roses, and that is wonderful. There's other parts of my life that I do enjoy, this continuity, this peace, and all of that.
As someone who literally will stop and smell roses, that can also be to the fullest.
No, and that's fine. That's fine and wonderful.
The smell of roses.
I mean, I walked over here with you this morning, and I saw you doing that. Not literally roses, but this idea of like, we only have so much time on this earth. When I was at the first CubeCon, the reason why I played so many drafts is I was like, it cost a lot of money and a lot of time to get out here. I'm not sure if this is ever going to happen again. I'm not sure if I'm ever going to be able to do this. How do I make sure that, all of this time and money to travel 2,000 miles to Wisconsin was worth it? And the way I was gonna get my money's worth was to play as much Magic as I could to get that like highest like change in emotional pitch, right? When you do a good play, you do get that rewarding feel good. Oh, look, I thought through this and I feel good about it. But when you get like, oh my gosh, I built my deck so that if I top deck Fire Blast, I could make it to the finals in the Washington Cube Champs. And I had like 3 outs and I just didn't get there. And that's fine. Okay, it's no big deal. Like there's a roulette spinning kind of thing almost. I was talking with Bones like 2 or 3 years ago on the Cube Talk Discord, and he was telling me that like he looks for Magic to be like chess. And I was saying I would rather it's like 21
a slot machine.
Or poker or a slot machine. Yes. Let me pull the lever again. This time I'll get him.
Here's what I think is interesting about that. I have observed in my time being very invested in Magic and Cube, so many players get really invested in the game, but then ultimately play in a way that kind of makes them not happy anymore.
Yeah.
Like just end up in a pattern of like, yeah, this is what I do, but actually I'm like really frustrated almost every time I play, and I'm just like ruminating on my mistakes, and they kind of end up falling out of love with the game because of the way they set themselves up to play. I do think that the sort of Bones methodology, or this idea that like we play Magic because games are interesting and they present us with challenging decisions and an opportunity for self-improvement and skill expression, like that idea I think is pretty pervasive and maybe for a lot of people not compatible with like a long-term love of the game. You play Magic more than almost anybody. You're speeding all over the place. You're,
literally
going to like heroic lengths to make drafts happen in your like local community. And when you travel to something like CubeCon, you don't sleep and just... How much caffeine do you consume?
Not a ridiculous amount, more than I probably should, but I drink like 2 or 3 cups of coffee a
But
day.
you're not like an energy drink person.
No energy drinks ever.
You play more Magic than almost anybody I know. I mean, really,
More Cube. There's other people that are Magic addicts more than me.
Some people I
You're
know,
only number 4.
but some people I know that grind, MTGO or whatever, they don't seem very happy.
I agree.
Is what I'm getting at, and you seem bursting with joy at all the Magic you get to play.
I agree with that. I think there's a lot of discord in like the way that like we are taught about Magic and that we view Magic and the way that Magic actually is, because Magic is a skill-based game. Magic does have like all of these axes you can improve on, but it is also a luck-based game. It is a lot closer to poker or these casino games than it is to Go or chess or something like that. There is variance every time you draw a card. There's variance in the mana system. There's variance in the power level of cards. And if you aren't comfortable with that, then you shouldn't play this game. It's fun, it's great, but like it's really not for that highest level of skill expression. A lot of these people that are good at this like balancing and percentages and all of this variance stuff, if they wanted to actually make money or do stuff, they just go play something else. They go play poker, they go do the stock market or whatever, right? Like that is things that you could actually do with that skill set of measuring things. If you want to do this for fun, then just have fun with it, right? Like I was talking with David McDarby about this up at the Washington Cube Champs about like I have more fun losing with a good story than like most people. I have more fun losing than most people. I played a game against him using my deck from a Pauper Cube against his deck in Aqua's Cube, and I got crushed. I got stomped into the dirt. And he's like, why do you even want to do this? I was like, because it's fun. And I had a chance. Like, it was a small chance, but it was a little chance. And it was fun. So some people are like armadillos, right? Like, they got this little, like, shell. They're all like, oh, well, I want to be protected from this outside world. I want to be protected from this, like, giant explosions and craziness and, like, these various things that could happen. And that's wonderful and fine if you really need to have that shell.
Yeah, armadillos are wonderful, and we should stop and don't get too close because they can carry diseases, but enjoy them.
Stop and smell the armadillos.
Stop and smell the armadillos.
But like Magic is a game of variance and is this game of silly craziness. And if you can just lean into that the way that like, Mark Rosewater does, and he loves Magic and his favorite version of Magic is the unsets. And you're like, why does that make sense? Richard Garfield loves Magic and started Magic. And he talks about like how Magic is supposed to have land destruction and hymn to Torok and craziness. And when he did that episode with you guys, which was a wonderful episode, he talked about the games that he likes having just, you win the game when you hit this piece, or you attack this piece and like everything around it explodes randomly and you don't know. That's the kind of game that Magic is. And I am embracing that. And I think the huge like discord, again, in this way that 30 years of competitive Magic playing has like talked about this, really contrasts with how Magic has been designed, and honestly how much casual Magic is played right now with EDH and stuff. Like, people barely know what's going on.
That is true.
I played one Commander game in the last like 6 months, and somebody playing a card that when it entered, everybody sacrificed a creature and then a little feign death spell on it, so it would come back and do it again. It took like 15 minutes to resolve because everybody had to check what one thing did, and then, one person had a graveyard hate thing, so should we take that back? And then, I'll blow that one up. And it's just so much stuff. And all of the cards have so many words nowadays. Nobody reads all the stuff on the cards. I certainly don't want to read all the things on the cards. And so it is more like a slot machine than it is like a skill expression thing. And you can design it like Andy has done, or Greg or Bones or whoever, to have more focus on like competitiveness, and you can have these people doing that, and that's great, but that's not the easiest path for this river to flow. And that's not the main thing that it goes down.
Another aspect for me of this, which is worth disambiguating, is all the story moments you're describing are kind of like public story moments. You and your opponent both know the stakes. It is like transparent what's happening. And I think a lot about some of the most iconic like coverage moments in Magic's history, the like top deck lightning helix, the laying out your ultimatum mana, the
ignite memories,
like all those kinds of like iconic moments. And it's always struck me that those moments are actually never about the skill of the player. Like,
correct.
You're not skillful for top decking lightning helix. You're not skillful for getting really lucky on your ignite memories rolls, or unlucky depending on which side of the table you're rooting for. In my opinion, that's not actually what makes Magic a great game. Like, that's just a thing that is a byproduct of Magic, and it makes for the most interesting coverage because, again, the story is laid out. Like, it is completely transparent.
And it is a much more like emotionally charged moment when it's like you're out of control. And that is something that appeals to people.
Well, exactly. That's the thing, is this like this feeling of loss of control is addictive in some ways. It is like dramatic, and it's like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And I love that. And Magic is a much safer place to express that and feel that than,
for
racing
example,
your car.
speeding like crazy on the highway.
Yeah. Than speeding or, doing drugs or whatever, right?
I was supposed to loan Joe my car after this recording so we could go pick up Kelton from the airport, and I'm starting to have second thoughts.
I am by and large a reasonable driver. Several of my tickets were back in high school and stuff like that. So
you didn't say the majority. You didn't say most of them. You just said several of them. That's not.
I haven't gotten a speeding ticket in like, I don't know, 6 years, 7 years. Anyways, but like Magic is a way that you can have these like high emotional intensity, high octane moments where there is this like, oh my gosh, something might happen, that is safe, that is like within this contained shell, right? Like, worst thing that can happen is you lose the game, or
Damn it, I just lost the game.
Actually, that's not the worst thing that can happen. The worst thing that can happen is you, with Contract from Below, keep anteing cards and losing the game and losing additional cards from your deck. That happened to my friend Turner at a...
Here we go. Veering off into another anecdote.
Sorry. But like, the worst thing that can happen is you lose the game. And then, you just play another game, or you go play Magic next week or whatever. But like, you're not getting hurt physically, you're not losing material things, and so it's much safer to have these like scary experiences. This is the same reason why people watch scary movies, right? Like, they watch horror.
And I think that is definitional to what games are. It's like, this is a safe place to play and experiment with ways of thinking, and experiment with emotions, and experiment with struggles. Like, I think game and play is really important for that like ability for people to learn and experience things in a safe way. It's striking to me, though, the way that you're talking about like that like emotional high and that excitement is like, I just cannot empathize with that excitement of gambling. Like, it's funny the way I'm thinking through it. I'm like, the idea of playing roulette is just so alien to me, because I can't imagine feeling invested, like feeling investment to feel the stakes of a thing that is literally completely out of my control. And it's like, well, that's what the money's for. The money is the stakes that makes you care about it. But it's like, why would I volunteer myself into that kind of experience where I am completely out of control? And I don't know, it's just a very different way of appreciating things.
Yeah, and to get back to that, like,
have you ever gambled? Do you gamble?
That's what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna say. Like,
and if you haven't, maybe don't.
I was gonna say, I don't gamble. I don't. I have never tried any drug other than like alcohol. Right?
That's different from gambling.
Well, sure, but like,
man, what if there was a drug that just did something? Who knows what?
There are drugs that cause you to become addicted to gambling.
Sure. well, and gambling addiction has like there's an episode 99% of Invisible or something about like gambling
That's
addiction.
exactly what I was thinking of.
Being,
Yeah.
being similar to drugs, right? And I have, I believe, that kind of personality that I am very easily going to be trapped into these things. And so the way that I express that is with magic, right? And I think magic is a great way to express that because it is safe, because you're not going to lose thousands of dollars. You're not going to...
Or you just already have, if you think about it.
Sure. I remember playing an MTGO League and like losing a bunch of stuff, but I was listening to Tolstoy and War and Peace. And in War and Peace, the little chapter I was listening to involved a person gambling and losing like tens of thousands of rubles, and it was a whole big dramatic thing. And I was like, I spent $5 to enter this MTGO League and $10 to rent the deck. I lost $15 for 4 hours rather than $20,000. And just like, yeah, that like small level, big stakes is fun.
To each their own, because I'm kind of like Anthony. Miss me with that. That is not how I want to feel. And what I was trying to say earlier is that I think for me, the small little moment of Flame Slash versus Glass Casket, and then that paying off, right?
Yeah.
That to me is the same rush, but it's a rush that I have more agency over.
Sure.
I feel like, I got rewarded basically for like seeing into the future a little bit. But that's really just for me, right? Like my opponent doesn't know necessarily that I had these exact two removal spells, and that like if they never drew Kess, I should have sequenced differently because they would have been able to cast a 2-drop alongside the Flame Slash and maybe put more pressure on. That's really a little moment just for me. It's not a big sort of flashy moment for the table, which is just a different type of story, I think.
I agree with that. And I think a lot of people, enjoy that more like introverted style of expression and joy and story moments for themselves. I like the big stories that include as many people as possible. I like the whole table. I like the whole community. Tiny other anecdote. My favorite one of these kind of stories is possibly when I was playing against somebody who brain freezed me out in game 1, and they were a storm deck, and I saw a bunch of their deck, and I realized that their only win condition was brain freeze. So for game 2, I went back to the basics box, and I grabbed all the basic mountains, and I shuffled them into my deck. And I was able to win with my much larger deck this time. And then for game 3, I grabbed all the basic islands also. And at that point, my deck was about 3 or 4, maybe 5 times as tall as theirs. And we just set them on the table next to each other and took a picture. And everybody was laughing. And the guy with the brain freeze was like, I have 1 Snapcaster Mage. I might draw my 1 Snapcaster Mage before you draw enough cards.
Before you draw any creatures in your deck, because you're just going to play a land every turn, do nothing, mostly, statistically.
And it was great. And like the whole table is invested in that idea of like, I'm a very community-oriented person.
And you don't like slow, grindy games, but you want the game where you're literally just going to draw basic lands
I mulligan to a creature. And I
guess
won.
that's actually, pretty good.
It also means your deck's bigger, so...
Yeah, it's fine. But like having other people able to come over and watch and see the table and understand what you're doing, that's a way that your kind of skill expression can work if other people are watching that. That's why people enjoy watching streamers where they're like talking through their ideas and talking through their like reasonings. It's much easier to grasp, oh, wow, this is something big that both players are doing, rather than just this is something big one person is thinking about, especially in person and paper, right? Because you can't talk about your thoughts out loud without letting your opponent know, oh, I'm holding this removal spell for when you draw your Kess.
I think my takeaway from this is definitely just thinking more about the fact that allowing access to those kinds of story moments without the barrier of skill expression and agency, which, I think in a lot of my cubes where like I have my little Glass Casket Flame Slash moment and, feel nice in my heart grows 2 sizes. Those kinds of things are often not accessible to players that are not thinking on that level. And if you're trying to grow your play group and you have less franchise players coming through and you want them to have a memorable time, it's kind of hard to have that kind of moment without having that understanding of the game and like grasping that depth of decision making. And there's a lot of virtue in just making those story moments accessible to everybody.
And honestly, it's not just the newer players.
You're like, it's also the real experienced players. You're drafting 2 decks at the same time while also making a pot of pasta.
I was talking about this with Julian last night, and I was talking about like vintage cube versus like more simpler cubes and stuff like that, about like the dramatic variance in card quality and the difference between like what cards do. And he was like, yeah, like I drafted my deck and I just kind of played a creature every turn and did the right things and sequenced my spells yesterday. But when you're drafting like these incredibly high variance decks where you have a card like Channel that's either like the best thing in the deck or unplayably bad, like you have more opportunity for these dramatic decisions to be made either right or wrong, rather than, oh, I played my removal spells in the wrong order and I guess that messed me up 3 turns down the road. And so a new person can see, oh yes, I did something bad quite clearly easier.
I do want to end talking about your one most bright story moment from the games this past week, last night, because I had drafted your deck in between rounds whenever I was, not playing games. I was coming over to see how you were doing just because I wanted to check in on my second child, see how things were going. And your third game of round 2 ended in pretty spectacular fashion. When I came over, your opponent was at 2, and you had a couple creatures in play, but no clear good attacks. And I was kind of like, all right, well, you've got a couple burn spells in there. I know you have Lightning Strike, you have Galvanic Blast, you have a couple other things. No, they were at 1, weren't they? They were at 1, not 2, and then they ate a food to get up to 4.
Get up to 4, yes.
Yeah. They were 1 life. You had a couple burn spells to draw to, but no clear way to attack on board. And I was like, well, it seems like you're out of these burn spells. Then they ate that food and gained some life, and I was like, 4 is out of reach of Lightning Strike and Galvanic Blast. And so I was like sitting there talking actually with somebody over your shoulder, like, I drafted this deck. I'm not sure how many outs Joe has left. They attacked with some things and left back a 5 toughness Corvold at 4 life. Your only board state was a Nyxborn Hydra with 3 counters on it, so a 3/4 Nyxborn Hydra. And I was like sitting there trying to think, like, I think Joe might be dead. Like, Galvanic Blast doesn't do it. Lightning Strike doesn't do it. You're only drawing 1 card a turn. There's no way with this deck to like draw 2 cards, to draw both those cards, in the same turn. I couldn't figure out a way for you to get out of it. And then sure enough, you just drew Scale Up. And I was like, yeah, that math works out. Because the Hydra has Trample. You make it a base power 6. It has 3+1/+1 counters on it for 9 power. And you attack into their 5 toughness Corvold when they're at exactly 4. And sure enough, the Scale Up was the exact card you needed in that exact spot. Which I felt a little bad for your opponent, frankly, because I was like, that's a really bad beat. But it was quite a spectacular way to end the game.
Yeah, it was great.
It did take your jet lag, sleep-deprived, addled brain a solid 25 seconds to do the math and realize that 9 minus 5 was in fact 4, and that was their life total.
I had to keep checking the Nyxborn Hydra because I knew it was a 0/1 base plus the counters, and I was like, wait a second. 0/1 plus 3 plus 6. Does that equal 9? That equals 9, right? How much life are they at? They're at
3
4.
plus 6.
That's 9.
Minus 5.
Minus 5. That's 4. Hey, that's the same number. It means they're dead.
It was crazy because I was like, I think there's no top decks left. I was running through the deck in my mind, and then, Scale Up, the top deck you need, apparently, at that exact moment.
Yeah, it's great.
Joe, thanks for coming on the show. This has been great to have you.
Thank you for having me. I've been listening to you guys since 2020. I signed up for your email list and sometimes send little emails back at you. It's a wonderful thing. This is literally the thing that I listen to on Monday mornings as I start up my work week. So thank you so much for making this. I really appreciate it, and both of you.
Looking forward to playing a lot of Magic this weekend. We will play exactly as much Magic. Well, no, you're in the Roto draft.
Yeah.
Joe's going to play a little more Magic than us this weekend.
Of course.
Because Joe's in the Roto draft.
Joe's going to find some more ways to play more Cube.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Lucky Paper Radio. Thank you all for tuning in. All of our music is produced by DJ James Nasty. All the Magic cards are produced by Wizards of the Coast. This show is edited by Matthew. Big thank you to Matthew for editing the show. If you want to support the show, you can back us on Patreon. You can find a link in the show notes. Anthony and Joe, thank you for the gift of friendship and for the gift of Cube.
Thank you. I supported your Patreon the first day because I really, really am grateful for this.
It means a lot. It really does.
Appreciate it, Joe. And thank you for coming all the way from the West Coast out here. And I'm looking forward to playing a bunch of Magic this weekend.
Which we'll probably talk about on next week's episode. That's a teaser.